And but anyway, man, I just want to thank you for coming back on the show again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again. It was an
Yeah, man.
absolute pleasure. I was a little concerned at the thumbnail that you put on the last live stream. It seemed like you might be making fun of me, but I
Oh
appreciate the
no.
fact that you invited me back because that's cleared any doubts in my conscience.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. So the yeah, I wasn't making fun. The I usually just pick thumbnails that I think has something to do with whatever we happen to be talking about.
That's fair.
And
That's
so
fair.
like that was like a philosophical discussion, so I kind of just posted.
Yeah,
So
no, 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 no. I like
yeah,
it.
yeah. So give me. I need to update the title everywhere.
You're
Bear
good.
me
You're good.
now. Ooh, all right. I think I uploaded everywhere, and I think we are streaming everywhere. Guys,
Okay.
if we're having audio issues, please let me know. I remember the last episode we were having issues because there was an echo. But okay, perfect. So one thing I thought was interesting. So we disagreed on a lot last time we talked, and so I was reading through your paper,
Okay.
and it's Nova Seclorum
Libertati.
Libertate. Okay,
Yes, a play
that's Latin.
on Novus Ordo Seclorum.
Okay.
Yes, the
New
the
World
new
Order
age of liberty,
yeah, of the
rather
new
than
age.
the new world order, which is very dark and ominous.
Yeah, but you know what? Like whenever like so in like I'm really big into like international relations,
Okay,
and so when I hear the term New World Order, like I have a very different connotation to that.
really?
Like yeah, I just think just like just the structure of the world order,
Yeah.
like you know, and that's kind of what I think about. Like I was reading the what's the president of Finland, I forget his name, but I was just reading a book he released, and he was using that term all the time. And so he's a Finnish guy. And in Europe, it kind of has a very different connotation. That's the kind of the way I view it.
Yeah, it
Over
makes
here,
me think of the what they call the rules-based international order, that
yes,
thing that the current administration killed very violently. Um,
yes,
but
yes,
a lot of people seem to think it's this like shadowy cabal of you know
mm.
plutocrats, which in today's age might actually be true.
And well, and that's what in the I forget the president's name. Let me Google it real quick. The president of Finland, but that is what he was arguing for about a rules based international order.
Yeah,
And president of Finland, Alexander Stubb.
stub.
Yeah, and he wrote a book called. Let me read it. Pull out his book. It is called The Triangle of Power. So it just came out this past January. Um, if you're into foreign policy, if you're into international relations, I highly
I've been dipping
recommend it.
my toes into it. I'll have to check it out. I do like Lines on Maps and his second channel where he goes into all of that stuff.
Oh, you're talking about on William Spaniel.
Yes, yes, I love that
Yeah,
guy. I always forget his name, but I
yeah.
love that guy. He's great. I've been following his coverage of the Iran kerfuffle,
Mm-hmm.
and even before then, I really appreciate his insight in the way that he breaks stuff down. He's very level headed.
Yeah, a game theorist.
Yes, game
and
theorist. I
and
like that.
I like the way how he employs game theory. He employs it with like a sophistication that I haven't really seen anywhere else. I really enjoy his takes.
Yeah, he's great. I think he has like very reasonable takes, like the uber reasonable liberal. I think
Yeah,
capital L liberal.
yeah, yeah.
Of just like, hey guys, can we just like chill the fuck out, please, and
Right,
be normal people for 5 minutes instead of
right,
trying to blow up the world? That would be
right.
nice.
So, I your paper. I was reading over it, like, and I
Yes.
agree with almost everything.
Okay.
But you know what's strange, and
What is
I guess
strange?
this is I guess the issue with any sort of type of literature, right? How people can read the same thing and come to very different conclusions.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I was reading your paper, and you wrote this, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Under the
Yeah.
power of my own mind. No AI, no bullshit. Yeah,
And so
100%.
I'm reading your paper, and I drew a very different conclusion
Tell me about it. Tell me
from.
about it. What did you draw?
So
What was the
I
conclusion that you drew?
I think this was a argument for no government.
Fascinating.
Yes,
Fascinating.
when you said like people have rights.
Yes.
Government does not have a right. It doesn't even have a right to exist.
Um so okay, so I think this might just be a misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
The monster exists and it cannot be killed. It I just take it as a brute fact that
And sure.
governance exists and that we cannot do anything about it in the absolute sense, right? We can't get rid of governments. We can't get rid of the concept of governance, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not arguing against the idea of governance because I
So
don't think that that's a coherent concept largely.
okay. So all right. So you're saying like, your position, you're kind of indifferent to the morality of government because
No,
it.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no,
All right.
no,
So
no.
that seems to be the. This is where I think we disagree.
Yeah.
We agree
Okay.
because like whether it's possible to get rid of government, it is. That's a really interesting question,
Right.
as well. But that you don't necessarily have to think that it's possible in order to be like a anarchist or agorist, right? You can want a perfectly functional society where there's no violence. Whether that's possible, I don't know. I mean, but you can still aspire to get there, right? And
I know I would disagree. I would hard disagree on that. I think that the existence of governance and the existence of a state requires that we engage in violence because that is what politics is, right? Politics is violence applied to persons through the mechanism of the state.
okay, and that is immoral, isn't it?
Um no, not necessarily. So the morality
Mm-hmm.
is how we negotiate when and where that violence is applied. That's where the morality comes in, right? We can make moral judgments about how politics happens and about how we conceptualize politics and through those politics how we conceptualize our relationship to the state. But like the existence of the state
Mm-hmm.
as like in a vacuum is not a moral issue to me because it's a given, it's a brute fact that I can't get rid of. And the existence of politics likewise.
But okay, even if you can't get rid of it, wouldn't it still be a moral issue? Like, okay, let's say like we can't get rid of violence, or we can't get rid of theft, right?
Right.
Because there's always going to be people just stealing. It's just inherent
Sure.
in our nature. But you could still call it immoral.
Yeah,
Like
if you want
whether it's
to.
moral and whether you are able to get rid of it, I think those are fundamentally different questions.
Um yeah, but again, I think it's just outside the scope of the conversation because we're talking about the state and governance, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's like a higher order priority for me than like all of the policy consequences that are downstream of that.
Okay. So,
Um,
well, no, you said no persons they do have rights.
yes,
What rights do governments have?
they don't have any rights; they have obligations,
Okay.
and that's point. Sorry, I'm also looking on my second screen. That's points 4.6 through 4.10, and those are the obligations that the government has as a contrast as a mirror, right, to what
Mm-hmm.
persons have. And these are not things that are like your rights don't come from anywhere, right? The government doesn't
Yeah.
give you your rights. There is no God, and so God doesn't give you your rights. These things are conferred to you automatically as it is determined that you fall within the classification of persons, right? And personhood is defined earlier in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So
All
as
right.
long yeah.
So no, you said okay. Could you tell me what an obligation of government would be?
Yeah, I can give you an example. So
Yeah.
I'll use the first one. So the monster is not conferred the associative right, but the commutative obligation, defined as the requirement to interact with its constituency without defiance, interference, delay, or additional cost to the constituency. So the government has an obligation to communicate to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, community. It has an obligation to interact with you. If you need a service from the government cannot refuse that service to you. It is obligated to provide that service to you. Right? So if you need to file paperwork with the court cannot refuse to file that paperwork. If you need to file charges with law enforcement cannot refuse to file charges, right?
Yeah.
The government cannot at any point in time refuse to serve you because you are its master. It is property that you own. And so it has no right to refuse.
Okay, so now let's talk about when we talk about rights.
Sure.
Rights would to me is like a form of authority. Like I have a right over my body, and what that means is like I have like authority over my body.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I tie that to property.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. You have property rights over your own body. You own it, right? It's yours. Yeah.
Right, and so I think I don't even know if they could be separated. I don't see how someone could have a right over something that they don't have property in.
Well, but the government is your property.
Well,
so you have a right over the government, and the government doesn't own anything, so it can't refuse.
Can the government tax me?
Taxation.
Yeah.
Taxation is an agreement that we make as persons to fund the state. It's not something that the state is.
Well, okay,
like,
okay. Now you say
you.
it's agreement that we make as persons. Like
it's a contract
like you're
that we
speaking like collectively. Because
yes, a constituency. Well, you form part of a constituency, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then so you forced the state to enter into a contract.
Well, I didn't. So, but
you're party to the contract. For right. all intents and purposes, at the current moment, you are party to the contract that forces the state to be funded.
Yeah,
right?
but not by choice. Because remember, you talked about the person, right? It's an individual, right? Yeah. So, can other persons make decisions over my body for me? Like somebody there's a person who wants to sleep with me, and I don't want to do that. Could society get together and decide they have a right to sleep with me?
Probably not. I would say probably not.
Right, because
legislative operations don't extend past self-ownership of your body.
Right. Well, what about?
I would say rights are like red lines. This is the thing that cannot be crossed, and the moment that it is crossed, whatever has crossed it needs to be beaten within an inch of its life. And if it's the state, then you beat the state within an inch of its life.
What about like my car? Like, okay, let's say this is something more trivial, like this chapstick. Like this is mine.
Sure.
I bought it with my own money. It's mine.
Sure.
And could society collectively get together and make decisions about this chapstick?
No.
Right, because it's mine.
Yes.
Right. So this is the same issue that I'm having with my relationship with the state.
Sure.
Because I never made that decision.
Yes,
I'm a person. I'm an individual.
You are party to it, unfortunately.
But how does that work functionally?
I can't answer that question. It's outside the scope of the conversation and the scope of what the paper seeks to address. I'm not telling you necessarily that like we can reform the current system in the way that you're describing. I'm making a cultural and ethical argument. I'm not talking like policy prescriptions, if that makes sense.
Sure. But I guess
the paper
seem to go contrary to my rights?
No, like I agree with you. I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's just outside the scope of what NSL is dealing with, because NSL is assuming a bunch of things that are not currently the case, right? But because it's making a higher order argument, it's making an argument for culture and not an argument for politics, right? It's because politics is downstream of culture. So I would agree with you that, for instance, a legislative operation that would seek to lay claim over your chapstick, right, is invalid on its face, and it cannot morally, ethically, continue through any legislative procedure, right? In my mind, it's invalid whether or not people vote on it just on its face.
Right.
But in practice, that's currently not what's going on. The NSL is means tested, not ends tested. So I'm not necessarily concerned with like the current outcomes of current systems that currently exist, because I'm not arguing for them.
Okay, so the monster, could it make a decision over my chapstick?
No, the monster doesn't make decisions. The monster is forced into contracts. The monster has,
Okay.
outside of its desire to eat, and that desire is there because we put it there.
But
It doesn't make decisions.
the monster is the government. Am
No,
I
the
wrong?
monster is governance. Is the concept of governance.
Okay. All right, and the concept of governance.
Yes. So it's
Okay.
it's not about my government or your government, but about
But just
the
governments
concept
in general.
of governance.
But governments in general.
Sure, you could say that, but I would say that it's a little higher than that. It's the concept of governance, right? When we say that there are people in power over us, that is what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the structure that invokes this power. I'm concerned about this conceptualization, right?
And when you say that, you're talking about like whether it's like a liberal democracy
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
monarchy.
A government can take any shape, right? As far as I'm concerned, but it can only consist of one thing, which is people who want to be there, right? I'm not concerned about the particular structure. I'm concerned about how we conceptualize this culturally.
Okay. So, all right. Now, you said it can only consist of people who want to be there.
Yes. So constituencies, by definition, are groups of people that have voluntarily associated to such a point that it creates complexity that instantiates the monster locally.
Okay. And when you say the people who want to be there,
Yes.
are you looking at them on an individual basis, or are you looking at a collective basis?
Yes.
The latter.
So voluntarily associated persons come together, and when a certain threshold of complexity has been reached, they become constituencies, right? And in becoming constituencies, they locally instantiate the monster, which is then bound in perpetuity to that constituency. How you want to define that constituency is up to you, but the monster has no ability to change that definition once it's made, right? At least
all
not
right.
under its own power. So I give the example that the founding fathers in the United States, they wrote a constitution that had a specific definition for what its constituency was, right? And so if you want to talk about, well, I didn't agree with that, you have to take it up with that document and that definition of the constituency. I can't help you with that, right?
Okay. So I want to tackle the part when you said
Sure.
the monster can only have people who voluntarily want to be there. So
No, constituencies only contain people who want to be there, or at least NSL assumes that is the case.
okay. Now, all right. So if no, when you say consent, and you say you're looking at a collective basis,
Sure.
that would seem to be non-consensual. So like, let's say there's a
What do you mean?
state. So 70% of the people, 70% of the constituency wants the monster to do A, and
Okay.
30% wants the monster to do B.
Sure.
So if the monster follows the 70%, would you say that's consensual?
I would say that's democracy. And if you don't like that, you have a problem with democracy, not with me.
Okay, but would you call that consensual?
I would call it democracy.
All right. So now when you said the constituency,
Yes.
the constituency can only consist of people who want to be there, who voluntarily
Yes.
want to be there.
Yes.
All right. So if 30% are saying they no longer want to be part of the monster,
Sure.
can they just now refuse to participate?
Yeah, they could exit the constituency. I don't see why not.
Okay, now when you say exit this constituency, I'm not talking about them just packing up and leaving their stuff behind. I'm talking about like they own a house, they own property, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They get to keep their stuff. They just no longer want to participate. They say, "Hey, I no longer want to fund the monster."
I mean, assuming that your definition of, or rather, the definition of the constituency defines participation in the constituency in that way, then yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But NSL doesn't make commentary on how one would exit a constituency in any particular case. So I don't have any commentary there. I assume, for the purposes of argument, that being in a constituency is a voluntary thing, that yes, you can revoke at any time, pursuant to whatever definition of a constituency has been provided.
Okay.
Again, I'm not
Can-
making
can-
specific
could
structural
you give
arguments
me-
about specific governments or governmental systems. I am making arguments about culture that would generate different kinds of politics.
Gotcha. So like, and I'm not talking about like any specific type of system.
Sure.
And
Well, I mean, you are
I
when
guess,
you phrase that question, you kind of are. You're assuming that a particular kind of constituency already exists that is defined in a particular way, and then you're implying that that definition would seem to contradict an individual's desire to leave in a specific way as you have defined it. So that's why I object to this framing, because I don't make commentary on that.
well, I guess I was trying to figure out what your definition of like a voluntary would be, because so like most people, like you're familiar with social contract
Yes, of course.
theory, right? And so I totally reject that. Like I don't
That's
think
interesting.
yeah, I don't think you're in the contract automatically by being born on a certain patch of dirt. I think that has to be that each individual needs to consent to that.
That's certainly a position. I don't think that I don't think that the subjugationist program makes any commentary on that. So
Okay,
I don't.
maybe all right. So
I
maybe
again, I
I
assume
wasn't
for the
following.
purposes of argument that everybody who is in a constituency and in a vacuum is agreeing to be there, because otherwise,
Could you give me a quick summary of of I guess the over mainly the second part of the paper when you're talking about the monster. Maybe I'm not
yes.
understanding. Not understanding
Yeah,
something.
I could give you a quick summary. I
Mm-hmm.
have a note document here because it boils down to something very simple. So
Okay.
three statements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Statement number one is that no well-adjusted human being has ever sought a position of institutional power over any other human being. To do so or to wish to do so is a marker of basal psychopathy.
Mm-hmm.
Statement number two: those who obtain positions of institutional power have violated the natural moral order in a way that you and I have not. This violation is morally unforgivable and must carry the highest, harshest, and cruelest legal, moral, and social punishment in existence. And number
Hold
three,
on. That
yes,
part. Say that part one more time.
those who obtain positions of institutional power have
Mm-hmm.
violated the natural moral order in a way that you and I, Tribule, have not. This violation is morally unforgivable and must carry the highest, harshest, and cruelest legal, moral, and social punishment in existence.
Now, so when you talk about institutional power,
Yes.
are you talking about government? Like if someone was to become a mayor, would
Yes.
that
So
all right?
any
That
office.
sounds like an opposition to government.
No. Any office
Mm-hmm.
that whose actions or dictums carry the threat of violence that the state has
Yeah.
is a position of institutional power, right? Now, statement three is the United States Constitution has enshrined the only appropriate punishment for this violation within the 13th Amendment, and we are morally obligated to enforce it. I am not arguing against government. I am arguing in favor of enslaving our government. Your mayor is not a person. He doesn't have rights. He is your property. You own him. The government must exist, but it must exist beneath you, in service to you. And you must enforce that submission, that subjugation, by any means necessary. Preferably as violently as possible. Which is why
Okay.
I'm not... I would
But
not
it
make
just
good
seems
friends
like
with Nick Land if you catch my drift, because I don't believe in his concept of cold anarchy.
so now so I would I would like to agree
Okay.
that if that people should rule their government.
Yes.
They should control their government. The issue is that when it's applied in actuality, you'll hardly find any agreement. So
Yeah,
when
that's an ends testing question. I'm not concerned about that. And I don't make commentary on ends testing. I'm talking about a system of ethics that generates new kinds of politics. I'm making a cultural argument.
but wouldn't it be unethical for the because like not everybody's gonna be able to rule the government. Like
Why
it's
not?
just because people gonna so like for instance, like in America where it's 330 million people, right?
Sure.
Uh, a little bit less than 50% of those people actually vote, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, how could I rule my government? My government does things that I don't want it to do all the time.
Right.
And that's the case for the vast majority of Americans.
Sure.
So, I mean, how and then if it did do what I wanted to do, it would still be the case for most Americans that is doing things that they don't want it to do.
Yeah.
What I'm saying,
So
so
I mean
by adhering to
that's a
any,
question of like policy. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is that you regain power over your government by exercising your ownership stake in your government officials, right? So
Mhm.
you own your mayor. Your mayor is your legal property. You can do onto your mayor whatever you feel is necessary to ensure his complete and total obedience to the
so
constituency's
ob-
will.
obedience, obedience. So when you say obedience to the constituents,
Yes.
and if I point out that the constituents have things that can't that are mutually exclusive,
Sure.
are you saying is that beyond the scope of the paper's position?
No. So I think that there are certain limitations to what. So, for instance, there are legislative operations that a certain percentage of the country currently wants to enact that I would say
Mm-hmm.
are invalid on its face, and so the government wouldn't even have the authority to enact them. Right? I'll use the example of gun control. Right? We'll take
Mm-hmm.
California and New York, and we'll put them on the stand for a minute. California would love to just confiscate guns and regulate how guns exist in their state, right? But I would
Mm-hmm.
tell you the state does not have the authority to do this. So it just wouldn't because it doesn't have the mechanisms to do this. Even if the constituency wants it, the people cannot legislate themselves into slavery, right? That's not how it works. There are our government works in the way of enumerated powers, right? And NSL does something very similar by giving it obligations and not rights. So the government doesn't have the right to do anything. The government has obligations to do specific things. And one of those things is preservation of basic rights. Any legislative operation that would seek to go in contrary to that is invalid on its face.
Can the government take people's money without their consent?
Again, with the taxation.
Yeah,
The
because you said
government,
it can't
the
take
government
guns.
does not take your money because the government cannot own anything. In order for the government to steal money from you, it needs to be able to own the thing that it's stealing, and the government cannot own anything. So no,
Well,
that's not how taxation works.
okay, so well, I disagree. All right, because you could definitely steal something from me,
Not
and
if I don't
without
have
owning.
property rights. It is
Well,
meaningless
you
for
don't
me
have
to
to have
say
property rights, but you could, like,
it would
you
be
could.
meaningless for me to steal something from you if I can't own anything.
Well, but I still lose it.
Maybe, but it's not theft.
So I have a thing.
Sure.
Somebody come and take it from me, but since that person doesn't have property rights,
Let me
I
ask
now
you.
lose
Let me
it.
ask you a question.
It's not a theft.
Let me ask you a question. If a feral dog takes your backpack in the middle of the woods, is that theft? Has the dog stolen something from you?
Yeah, I would say it stole it.
But the dog doesn't have property rights. It's not a person. It can't own anything. You may have lost the thing, but clearly the dog hasn't stolen from you.
I would say dogs can own things. I think dogs own their bodies. I think
Well,
they can own a stick. They find a stick. It's theirs.
yeah, unfortunately, I think that's another point of disagreement. And that's a really uncomfortable concession that I make in the paper.
Would you
'Cause
say animals don't have rights?
no, animals, all of nature is property, owned or unowned, unfortunately. And I really hate to say it, but that's the conclusion that I have to come to.
Now,
Because
okay,
otherwise, if we draw the line anywhere else, dude, like problems become real very quickly. How does a dog enforce its property rights?
it
Can
doesn't
the-
have
can-
to be. So it
can the
doesn't have
dog
to be able
sue
to
you?
enforce. No, but so that's a very different question.
No, it
Whether
isn't.
no, whether it can enforce and protect its rights is a very different question from whether it has.
Okay, can it advocate for its rights? Does the dog understand what it means to have property rights? Because this is a thing that humans invented. This is not a thing that is
So-
innate to dogs.
So in a very elementary way, a dog can advocate for its rights.
In a
Like you,
court of law?
well, not in a court of law. No,
Well,
no, no.
that's where our rights exist,
But
my
that's what I mean.
friend.
Like, I mean, in a very basic way, in a very primitive way. Like you take
No,
you take a stick from a dog.
Because we don't enforce. We don't talk about our rights that way. Our rights don't mean that, right? We talk about rights as legislative civil protections, right? Things that we say are minimum base standards past which we enter the land of tyranny, right? Dogs do not understand it that way, clearly. Now, if they do, if they demonstrate sapience tomorrow, I extend personhood to them automatically and retroactively, and that's a different conversation.
But is understanding your rights a prerequisite to having them?
Yes, because sapience is a prerequisite to
what
personhood.
about a baby?
Okay, so
a baby has
sapience
rights.
is awarded at the sapience is conferred and recognized at both the individual and the species level. So that's a moot point.
Okay,
The baby is recognized to
you
have
saying like
sapience
so like
because
you
it
saying
is a
like
member of a species
humans
that demonstrates
humans
sapience.
collect you saying like since humans as a species can understand rights and a baby is human, therefore
Yes, because we
okay.
have seen human beings have demonstrated as a species
okay
that they possess sapience, right?
yeah
And that is the threshold. If you are an individual member of a species known to possess sapience, you are a person.
all right okay I understand that point.
Yeah.
So let's bring this back to an animal now.
Sure.
All right, so wait, if an animal doesn't even own itself,
Yeah.
has rights in its own property, and other people can own it, think about what this means. Like this
Yeah, no.
chapstick, I
know.
own it, so I can do what I want to it.
Yeah,
I
I
can,
know. It's an
understand?
incredibly uncomfortable position that I've come to, and I really don't like it. But it's the only place I can draw this line that doesn't cause more problems down the line.
But what problem would it cause to say that an animal has rights?
Because then you have to introduce legal systems and ethical systems that allow dogs to enforce and advocate
don't.
for those rights. No, you do. You do.
But you said yourself that the government doesn't give rights. We have them just because we have
that's
them.
not what I'm saying. You need institutions in order to protect these things, right? Like rights are civil protections.
I agree. So, well, your ability to protect their right is a totally different question from whether you have the right. So, like this thing think about like if I don't know some girl, some innocent girl walks out in a dangerous street, right, and she gets mugged or something worse happens to her, right? She, because she's small, she's not on she doesn't have a lot of strength. She may not have the ability to protect her rights. That doesn't mean she doesn't have them.
Right, but we understand that human beings have sapience, and so that it becomes a moot point.
Okay, all right. I kind of figured you were going to say that with a human. All right, so but
One of the consequences that it creates, for instance, is and this is the one that I list in the paper, is that this legitimizes things like discussed politics, right? So when we start talking about how people are able to use their property, we start to veer into the territory of legislative operations that violate your property rights. Like I use the example of your neighbor's Civic. You might find him ricing it the fuck out to be disgusting, but it's his Civic. It belongs to him. He can do whatever he wants with it.
Can he do whatever he wants with his dog?
Yeah, I know. It's uncomfortable.
He can
I don't
torture
like it
it
either.
To me, that's a big problem right there.
Yeah, but
So
we need to be able to separate. We need to be able to separate the emotional component that gives us empathy for other animals from our ethical dispositions. We have to separate these things.
To me, this is not an emotional appeal here.
I think it is. I think you're expressing empathy for another living creature that feels pain, and trust me, I express that empathy as well. Like this is the one thing that I was really worried about because I also find it incredibly problematic, but I can't draw the line anywhere else. I don't see a way to draw it without creating more problems.
Why not with sentience?
Because it seems to me that plenty of creatures on this planet are sentient, and only we do the kinds of things that this paper addresses, right?
Yeah.
There is a different threshold here. I recognize sentience. Sapience is a different thing. And I think that the line should be there.
Well, why not? Why not separate the question from your ability to protect or advocate from your rights from the question of do you have rights? Because it seems like you're conflating them. You're saying, oh, because the dog can't advocate for his rights, he doesn't have them.
No. The dog is rendered as property because it lacks sapience. It lacks specific cognitive abilities, right? The dog exhibits a lower form of cognition that does not rise to what we do. If this changes, they are extended personhood immediately. Like I don't have any problems with this. And the threshold is built in such a way that it would never preclude them from rising to the occasion. But at the moment, we don't see that happening.
So humans could actually fall, well, sink to the
yeah, maybe the engine of
place where
evolution
they no longer have
is a
rights.
curious thing. Yeah, if we lose the ability to, if we lose possession of sapience, yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question. Do fish have rights?
Yeah, I'd say they have rights.
So what does it mean for us to fish for sustenance?
Well, I would say I would call that immoral.
Are you a vegan?
I'm not.
Do you eat fish?
I do.
So how do you square that away?
Well, I would just say that I'm being immoral. But my position is completely coherent. Like
I mean,
I'm
yeah.
just,
I
I'm just a
suppose if you
hypocrite.
accept it, yeah. Well, I have a problem with hypocrisy. Like, I really do not want to advocate for something that renders me a hypocrite. So I have a problem with internal consistency on my own, which is why I drew the line there. Because otherwise, if I draw it in other places, it either causes problems or forces me to admit hypocrisy, and I don't want to do that. If you're okay with absorbing the charge of hypocrisy, more power to you. That's great.
Yeah,
I would call you a braver soul than me because I clearly am not that brave.
Let's talk about morality for a second
Sure.
here, because your paper addresses morality.
My paper is an ethical one portion is an ethical construction. Yes.
Yeah, right. So what
in the Wittgensteinian way?
To you, what does it mean to do something immoral? Can you give me like a very
to be in contradiction to any given ethical construction? If you define an action as
any
immoral,
given ethical construction, like
which is to say, if you have adopted an ethical construction for yourself and then you go against the prescriptions of that ethical construction, you are doing something immoral.
Okay, so if my ethical construction is to, I don't know, murder as many children as I can, and then for some reason I don't do, then I'm being immoral?
But yeah, by the definition of that ethical construction, you are immoral. That is what the word means. Again, remember that I'm running this off of a synthesis Wittgenstein, so I think that all morality is invented. These are just word games that we're playing.
Okay, all right.
Which is why the bomb threat happens first. Because that is why the bomb threat happens first. I have to blow up all of ethics, because otherwise you're going to start importing things from ethical systems that I reject on their face.
Okay, so all right, do you know? Like, difference between like what's it called, analytic and the analytic propositions, and then you have what's the other proposition? Let me Google it. For some reason the word escapes me. Synthetic propositions. All right, so like
not by those terms. If you explain to me the concepts you're describing.
Yeah. So, an analytic proposition is just a description of a term. A synthetic proposition is a description of reality. Right? So, now, if I say, for instance, a leprechaun is a short Irish person who wears green and likes gold. Right? Okay. I just described the word.
Sure.
Right? That's analytic. The leprechaun does not have to exist. I just gave you a word, right? If I say you are a leprechaun, I am saying you meet the properties that are described in an analytic proposition.
Sure.
I said a leprechaun is blah 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 blah, and I'm saying you meet the properties of blah 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 blah.
Right.
And that is a synthetic proposition. Okay,
Okay.
so now with my moral system, when I describe morality, I am making an analytic proposition. I'm saying a act that contributes to well-being.
Sure. I would say that you have constructed ethics in your mind in that alignment, in alignment with that proposition. Sure.
But yeah, so like I would say I just described the term. So now all I'm
Sure.
doing is I'm letting you know what I mean when I say a word.
Yeah. Sure. We're
Okay.
clarifying what language game we're playing. Absolutely.
Sure. I mean, you could call it a language game. I just say it's a tool. Like
Yeah.
we're
yeah,
using it.
That's yeah. Sure.
Okay. So all right. So now, do you see that as a problem?
What do you mean?
Like what I've just done. So if I say morality is a moral act is an act that contributes to well-being. Did
I don't see a problem with it on its face. I just don't. It's just an expression of language to me. It doesn't hold any weight.
Okay.
It's
All
just a
right.
feature of language.
All right. So now if I say, well, we not a feature. It's not just a feature of language because
It is just a feature of language.
well, I could if I was to describe. Okay. So if I said, let's see here. If I said that a truck is a vehicle as a raised vehicle with a flatbed,
Uh-huh.
you saying what was that word? What was that phrase you used?
You're engaging in a language game, or the description is a feature of language. Sure. Yeah, you're
Okay.
using language.
Yeah, I would be definitely using language, but that is something that you can now that I described what a truck is, you can now go and identify certain things as a truck, couldn't you?
Yeah, according to the definition that you've constructed.
Okay, all right. So and that is all I'm doing with morality.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
so-
all anybody does with morality. That's all I'm doing with morality.
Okay, but now after I describe now I have my analytic proposition, I can now make propositions about reality. I can now make
Sure.
synthetic propositions. I
Sure.
can say, hey, this thing is a truck. I can say this thing is immoral.
Sure.
All right, and well, do you have a problem with that?
No, not at all. That's how language works. You
Okay.
you set up the term, you define the term, and then you use the term. If you want to change the end result of the use of that term, you can change the way that the term is defined. You can change the term that you are using. That's language.
Okay. All right. So, and I guess to bring it back to your moral system. So, and you said it would be immoral to just do something that goes contrary to whatever your analytic proposition is.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
that's what the word immoral means.
Okay.
Is to
So,
be in contradiction to any given moral system.
all
Or
right.
to the prescriptions of any given moral system.
I guess on if that is your basis, how could you say like the monster is immoral?
Because I defined it. Well, I don't think that the monster necessarily is immoral,
Okay.
but that certain actions taken by the monster are immoral because I defined them to be that way. This is an ethical construction, remember.
Okay.
I defined the moral system so that I could label these things as immoral. That was the point.
Well, why define the monsters that way? Why define morality that way?
In order to get the proper use that I want. So I want an end state. So I need to construct a series.
What's
I need
that
to
end
construct.
state?
The end state is state subjugation. The subjugation of the state. That is my desired state of affairs.
Well, why do you want the subjugation of the state?
Because I believe that it's good and I like it.
Okay.
For the same reason that you want, whatever it is that you want ethically, because it's good and you like it, or because you think it's good and you like it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's essentially, it's just. I guess.
It's not any deeper than that. I promise you.
Okay.
And anyone who tells you that it is any deeper than that is trying to sell you something. Like the theists, right? When they say, no, that there are transcendental, overarching, ethereal truth, none of that shit is real. It's all a construction. right? Which is why the state subjugationist program is labeled a useful ethical construction. I recognize that I have built this. I'm just claiming that it's more useful than whatever it else, we have.
Wouldn't it be better if there was no thing to have to subjugate?
But there is.
But I mean, but it doesn't have to be, right?
No, but there is. And we can't get rid of it.
Well, but there were humans at a time where there was no monster.
Yeah, but notice
Matter of fact, that's the most of human history. Like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The oldest civilizations that we know to have kept written records wrote about the monster.
Yeah, and that goes back 10,000 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And Homo sapiens go back 300,000 years. So
yeah,
for the vast majority
something about
history,
our social development instantiates the monster. So if you want to go back to a place where the monster didn't exist, you're gonna have to give up everything that we have currently. Which that's
like
acceptable.
What?
Like
society,
what do you mean
give up?
Like civilization, like everything that you're currently using to have this conversation with me.
No.
Yes.
I don't think so. No.
But okay. But if you
don't need
ask the
government.
Neolithic, hunter gatherers 12,000 years ago. I'm sorry. That's just the state of affairs.
No. I disagree. So the reason why we saw a increase in technological advancements, it was because the ability to exchange information. It wasn't because of government.
Society. So sufficiently complex societies instantiate the monster as an automatic consequence.
There was a society 200,000 years ago. There just wasn't a government.
I don't think that's true. But we have no way of verifying this because they didn't write anything down.
Okay, but we see, like, you can see cave drawings. Like, you ever been in Europe, like in some of the caves they have in France?
Yeah.
Like they have like drawings and all that kind of stuff. You can see like their society. There was no government, but
that you know of, that they wrote about, that you would recognize. I don't think that it's the case that no government existed. Patriarchal family units are a kind of monster. Hunter-gatherer societies probably had a kind of governance. They may not have recognized it as governance. They may not have written it down as governance, but we would probably recognize it as a kind of governance.
So when you say governance, are you talking about some sort of like just in general, like any sort of organization of society?
The concept of governance. The idea that one person decides and the others are subject. Like that in the most basal way, that is governance. The idea that some humans direct other humans, that is governance.
Okay, and maybe this is the problem, right? Because we're having very different definitions of governance.
Sure.
Because governance for me is government. Typically, when we're talking about authority, the right to control something, it is based on ownership. Where I can control my body, I can control this shirt, I can control this little thing right here, right? Because I own it, right? Government is this organization that has a right to control things that it doesn't own.
I mean,
that
because people have defined it this way for the last 10,000 years, but I don't think that that's the case.
Yeah, but if you look at every government in the world, that's the way it operates. Like the United States of America, right?
Sure.
It doesn't. There's a lot of things that it doesn't own. Like the vast majority of the stuff that's on its borders, it does not own, yet it has control over it.
Yeah, it's systematized organization of voluntarily associated individuals. Sure.
It's not voluntary.
For the purposes of argument.
Okay, but when you say involuntary, you're talking about majority.
If we're talking about present conditions, yes, that's democracy. That you need to take that up with the Greeks, not with me.
Okay, but that's not okay. But that's not voluntary though. You call it democracy.
No, it's democracy.
What I'm saying, is democracy voluntary?
No, it's democracy.
Okay, so but you said the United States is voluntary.
I have to define governance in a particular way. So
but you said governance in the United States is voluntary, and then I pushed you and you said it was democracy. And I asked you, is democracy voluntary? You said, no, it's not. It's democracy.
Yeah,
so the United States, is it voluntary or is it not?
It's a democracy.
Okay, but does that include or exclude voluntarism?
In its present organization, it would probably be prudent for me to say that it's not entirely voluntary.
Okay.
Not the way that I would seek to have a voluntarist society. But again, I don't want to make specific commentary on specific structures that currently exist because I am in opposition to most of them. And I don't want to defend them. I'm not necessarily defending the American government as an institution here. Right?
Okay.
We're talking about governance in the abstract.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about just the United States.
Yeah.
That was just one example.
Sure.
But the government can, and it has the obligation to take my stuff, right? Because you talk about there was obligations that it needs to do, right? It's like as far as like any services that
it has the obligation to fulfill the contract that we forced it to enter into, as far as I am concerned. Yes.
Okay. Well, so the other people, like from my perspective,
Yeah.
like I didn't force it into that. I was just born into that society.
Right.
So in order to fulfill those obligations, it's going to need resources. It's going to need money, right?
Right.
Right. So like, how is it going to get that? Like, it's going to have to take it.
No, we give it. We put it into the system.
I don't
system.
so I don't give it. It's taken.
Yes, because the current instantiation and the current way that it's structured it results in that. But as far as I'm concerned, the ethical way to do this is that we voluntarily give up a portion.
We don't
of our
voluntarily. No, but remember, it is not voluntary.
Currently,
I thought
yes, the current instantiation of the U.S. government is not entirely voluntary. I am not trying to defend the current instantiation of the American government.
Okay.
Please stop making me defend it, because I'm not trying. I don't want to defend it.
Okay, is there a way that a government could fulfill its obligations? Let's say obligation to, I don't know, fight fires or enforce laws, right? Is there a way that it could do that without taking money from people?
I don't like the way that you're using this word "take," because the government cannot ethically own anything, so it can't take anything. We are depositing ourselves into the maw of the monster so that the monster can eat us.
You keep using voluntary language, but when I push you,
because that is the system I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for the current system in which these transactions are not voluntary.
So I'm just asking for, in general, is there a way for a government? Doesn't have to be United States, just any government, like in your society. So like you're in your society that you want. There's a government. It has obligations.
Yes.
Can it fulfill those obligations without taking money from people? And when I say take, I don't care if the government can own something. I mean, there are people.
No, but it matters. Okay. Well, if taking is not me grabbing something from you, and taking also includes you willingly giving me something, then I think we have a problem of definitions here. That's what I'm saying. Is that I'm not advocating for me taking something from you. I'm advocating for you voluntarily giving something up, which is not taking. I would agree that this is you willingly putting your hand into the monster's maw and allowing it to eat a little bit of you. But you are doing this voluntarily. This is not... At the current moment within the United States, the monster is out of the cage and is doing this wantonly without our permission. But ideally, it would have our permission.
Is there any... Can you point to any society, any government at any time period where it was acting voluntarily?
No, absolutely not. Which is why I'm advocating for something different.
Could you describe like the government that you would want?
It is described in the paper.
Okay, like let's describe it for me like now, because like I was reading the paper and I pulled something else from it, from what you're getting.
Well, I think it's because you've imported things that NSL rejects, right?
Probably.
You have imported things that are outside the scope of the argument. I am what you might want to call a popular sovereignty extremist.
Okay.
That is the easiest way to define this position. The state subjugationist position is one in which it is one where the utterance of Franklin is taken to its logical conclusion, right? We own the state. The state is not a person. The state has no rights. It is owned property that we can do whatever the fuck we want with. The people who make up the state are not persons. They do not have rights. They are our property. We do what we want with them.
Okay. Now, when you say we do what we want with them,
Yes.
that works well if everybody's in agreement.
Sure.
All right. And so, but in any realistic society, with like more
Well,
than
okay, but
like
now
I don't
you're
know a
ends
dozen
testing.
people.
Now you're ends testing, and I'm not concerned with ends testing. This is an ethical construction, not a policy prescription.
Okay.
I am giving you the cultural situation under which new forms of politics that I would consider ethical might spawn from. Because politics is downstream
So,
of culture.
well, it seems like that your ethical position could never apply to any large society, or
I
any,
disagree.
okay. When you talking about the government does what we want,
Yes.
okay, we don't all want the same thing.
Right.
So how
It
is that
seems like you
even
have a problem
practical?
with democracy, and that's not a problem I can help you with.
But
If you
no,
have a
no, no.
problem with democracy, you have to take that up with Athens, dude, not with me.
Okay, okay, but what do you mean when you say do what? Okay, there's a society. It has 100 people on it.
Sure.
100 people in it, and you have a mixture. You have some capitalists. You have some oligarchs. You have some Nazis. You got some communists. Like I mean, it's
No,
just
you wouldn't
mixed.
have Nazis. Nazis are not persons.
A Nazi isn't a person.
No. Someone who outwardly, and this is also described in the paper, someone who outwardly declares that some people, some group of people, do not have rights, doesn't have rights. If you do not want others to be protected by the system, you will not be protected by the system.
Okay. All right. So let's say there's no Nazis in it. All right. So, but every other position is in it.
Sure.
Okay. How is the government supposed to do what they want?
That's a policy question. I'm not talking about
No,
policy.
but
I'm
it's
talking
not a
about culture.
policy question. Like,
It
I
is
mean,
a policy question. That's downstream of what I'm talking about.
But what I'm asking is, look, but it's a philosophical question.
No,
Like,
it's a
it doesn't
practical
even matter
question.
what the policy
You are
it
asking
is.
me the practical minutia of how a government would go about. I don't care about that. That's a policy prescription. You leave that for the policy wonks. I am giving you the ethical
right.
building blocks upon which you could build a better system of government.
But what I'm saying is, but once you have a society where there's any disagreement, which is just bound to happen, the
Maybe, but
blocks aren't
NSL
going to fit.
for the purposes of the argument that NSL gives, none of that is relevant. None of that is relevant.
Okay,
I don't
all right,
care
so
about disagreements
so
because
let's so
it is not contemplated.
like can we leave the bounds of the paper for a little
Well, but then you're
bit?
asking me to argue for something that I'm not arguing for.
Well,
This is a cultural question. This is not a political question. It's not a policy question. It's a
well,
cultural question.
yeah, I agree. Like so I mean, it can be all of those things.
No, it can't. Politics is downstream of culture. If you want to change politics, you have to change the culture first. And all that the state subjugationist position is asking you to do is to recognize the statements I gave you earlier, that no well-adjusted human being has ever sought a position of institutional power. You define them as psychopaths, and then you can treat them as psychopaths. How you decide to implement that is a question for someone else, someone other than me.
Well, I'm not even so. I'm not even saying like treat them as psychopaths or not that part. You have a person
Sure.
who genuinely wants to do what's best for himself and his neighbors and everybody around him. He
Sure.
genuinely loves his country and he wants to serve them. And there's 100 people and they disagree. What is he supposed to do?
Not be a psychopath?
Sure. What you told him what he's not going to do. He's not going to be a psychopath, right? He's not going to look
Well,
out
if he
for.
wants a position of institutional power, he's a psychopath. That's the only reason you would want a position of institutional power, is if you are a psychopath.
Okay, so what is a psychopath supposed to do?
I don't know and I don't care. I just
But no-
want them subjugated
yeah,
because they're dangerous.
But okay, but you said subject. Okay, what do you mean by subjugate?
Okay. Senator John Doe achieved his position after an election, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he accepted the position, a transaction occurred. He gave up his personhood for that power. All I'm asking you to do is to recognize that transaction has happened and then treat him accordingly. He's no longer a person. Ethically speaking. Forget politics, forget policy. Ethically speaking, John Doe is no longer a person. He no longer has rights.
So you can do whatever you want to John Doe now.
Yes, he is your property. You have ownership stake in him.
Everybody does.
Everybody within the constituency, yes.
Okay, so one person in the constituency wants to kill him, and I don't.
That's a policy question. I'm serious. That's a policy. You're now downstream from where I'm standing. Josh, you are standing downriver from me. You are standing downriver from me.
Okay, I just don't see, like, I just don't see how it's practical.
I don't care about practicality. I care about ethics. I don't care about ends testing. I don't care about deployment. I don't care about practicality. I don't care about any of that.
Okay, right. Okay, well, the ethical. What would be the ethical thing to do?
The ethical thing to do would be for the constituency to exercise its ownership stake in Senator John Doe.
Okay, so
as it sees fit and within the confines of what the monster is able to do.
Okay, now how can the constituency do that if the constituency can't agree on what to do with John Doe?
That's a policy question. That's not an ethics question.
Okay.
I know. It's a paradigm thing, right? Like, you're just standing downriver from me. And I'm asking you to come upriver and then turn into a different direction. Now, if we want to stand there and speculate about where the river might go, fine. But that puts me in the position of having to speculate on things that haven't happened yet. Right? You're asking me to solve problems that have not come into existence yet. These are all hypotheticals. And if we get mired in the hypotheticals, we're going to get lost in the weeds.
Okay.
I know it sounds difficult because you have existed within a paradigm that has not allowed you to look outside of the paradigm.
Well,
right?
no, but so I'm not even within the paradigm here. Like, it's just a broad question. You have two individuals in a constituency and they disagree on what to do with their politician or with their ruler.
How do two property owners solve a dispute about their property? Like, reduce this down to a tract of land, right? You own a tract of land and I co-own that tract of land with you. How do we resolve disputes?
Well, you could split it in half, but here's the problem.
But that's not resolving the dispute, right? Because we co-own it. That's just creating new tracts of land. So if you and I disagree about what we want to do with the land, how do we resolve it? Like fucking people, dude. Whatever it is that you want to do to hash it out, we can do it. But that's no longer a question of ethics. So long as I have not harmed you, right, in such a way, so long as I have not violated your rights in the process of remedying this dispute, why should I care?
But that's the thing. So when we're talking about government,
right,
government is almost always used to abridge somebody's rights in some way.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I object to.
Well, but here's the problem, right? Because you're talking about subjugating the government.
Yes.
Right, bending it to the whims and wills of the people.
Right.
And so if the constituency wants to use the government to oppress somebody else.
No, I reject that on its face. You can't, the state has no mechanism to do this, and so therefore the people have no mechanism to do this.
You said the state has no mechanism to do it.
Yes, the state has no mechanism to violate rights.
Okay,
if it does so, it is because we have not kept it within the cage. But within the cage, it has no mechanism to do this. That is the purpose of the cage.
Okay, no. So now, when you talk about the people, the people. Let's say 99% of the people wants the government to take away the rights of like one individual.
No, that's not how that works. The state has no mechanism to take rights away. It has no power over persons. It is property.
Violate the rights.
It has no mechanism to violate rights.
So what do you mean it has no mechanism to violate rights? Like
it can't do it physically. I reject this prescription on its face.
The state has a bunch of guns.
The state should not have a bunch of guns.
Okay, but it does. Whether it
Ethically,
should or
shouldn't
not
have.
is a relevant
Okay, well then
question.
now you're talking about present conditions, and I'm not talking about present conditions. You are trying to drag me down river, and I'm not. I do not want to go down river with you.
But but when we're talking about government, what
Yes.
the government is able to do things over is able to
Okay,
exercise
actually, you
power.
just said something. You just said something critical. It
Uh-huh.
has things over people. I reject that. The state is beneath you. It is in service to you. It doesn't have anything over you. Not power, not privilege, not rights, not anything. That
Then
is
it
what I
can't.
mean when I'm saying ethically we need to dispense with this notion. Before we can talk about politics, before we can talk about policy and implementation, we have to rid ourselves of this idea that governments have power over anything. They don't.
th- and you okay? That sounds like you're arguing for anarchism.
No, because I'm not getting rid of the state. The state still exists. It exists
But
beneath us.
it has no authority over anyone. So if I don't
No,
want
it
to
has no
pay
power
taxes,
over anyone. If we invest it with authority to complete its contracts as we have forced them into it, that's a question of semantics. But it doesn't have power over anything. Over is the thing that I'm objecting to.
okay. So if the people give the government the right over contracts, to give the
No,
government the
not
right
over.
over.
Not over. The government is given power under, or given the ability to act under us. That is what
Okay,
I'm objecting to.
okay, and so so the government under the people
Yes.
act in a way to take my stuff from me.
No. The government can't take anything from you. It can't own anything.
Okay, okay. Can the government act in a way where I involuntarily lose my stuff?
Not ethically. No. As far as the state subjugationist program is concerned, no.
Okay, so
This would
it
be an
cannot
invalid operation.
it cannot tax me.
Not in the way that you're describing, no.
All right, that sounds like an anarchist to me,
But
man.
it's not anarchy because I'm not getting rid of the state. And it's definitely not
But
agorism because I'm not
but it
doing this
no longer
peacefully.
has any power.
It has power under us. It just doesn't have power over us.
Okay.
And that is the core of the subjugationist ethical prescription. We have to get rid of this idea that governments are above us. They are not. They are beneath us. You have to come upriver with me. You're standing downriver, and you're complaining that the downriver consequences are not looking good. Because you need to stand upriver and move where the river is pointing. It's an ethical thing. It's not policy, it's not prescription. Or excuse me, it's not application. I am not ends testing anything.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I thought I understood your position. Now I don't know. I'm not even sure what to ask. It,
You could ask me how my day is going.
we're- okay.
Hizzle, I am not a Sovset. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I am not a Sovset. That's ridiculous.
Sounds like it.
No,
So
I'm
Facade
not.
asked a question.
Facade, if they have power under us, what did it have? It has the ability to engage in the contracts or complete the contracts that we force it into. Right? So if we say you must spend our money this way, then that is what the government has power under us to do.
Okay,
if-
no, you said spend our money.
Yes, the
All
money
right,
that
no,
we give it willingly, voluntarily.
Okay. So all right, so let me give you my position as an
Sure.
anarchist, right? Okay, when I say like actually a voluntarianist. Okay,
Okay.
so I believe any sort of human interaction, it ought to be all voluntary.
Correct. Yes.
That doesn't mean a suspension. That doesn't mean you end all government. You can have it. It just needs to be voluntary.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's immoral.
Right.
Do you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, so that doesn't seem like it has any power at all, because now if the constituency wills that it does something. And I guess hold on.
Okay, let me
I'm trying to work through
ask
this
you
in
a
my head.
question. In
Okay.
order to drive a car, you have to put gas in it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so instead of thinking of taxation as the government taking stuff from you, think about taxation like you putting gas in the car. You are willingly putting the gas in the car. You are doing it of your own free will because you know that that's how the government is able to act in your benefit, right? If you want the government to do what you want it to do, it needs gas. It's a car.
Mm-hmm.
You have to feed the dog, right?
And what if you want it to, uh,
What if
like
you want it to do stuff and you don't want to put gas in it?
you want to you what if the majority wants to put gas in it? I mean, wants it to do stuff, and there's an individual who doesn't.
Then I would say that the only ethical thing that you could do is to consider that that person is no longer a part of the constituency. But that's a question of how you define constituencies and whether or not, you know, it's sorry, whether or not the definition includes how to leave, right?
Okay.
Actually, Hizzle, projecting the practical effects of an ethical position is the problem. This is how you get mired in conversations about policy, right? This is the problem. We need to means test the system before we try to ends test anything else.
You said means tested, and what do
Yes.
you mean by that?
I mean, if your means are bad, your ends are bad, regardless of how you get there, right? The means justify the ends. How you do something is more important than what you're doing.
Okay. I just don't see how. So okay, so let's you talk about like people who go around committing crimes. What could how would the government operate in that sense?
Well, I mean, I would hope that any ethical system would have less crime by default because we're defining less things as crimes. But
Yeah, I mean you can hope that, but
yeah, we resolve
I-
disputes the same way. Like nothing about the current way that we resolve disputes changes. It's just the framing under which these disputes are resolved.
so let's say there's a guy who's going out and stealing stuff from people.
Yeah, that's a dispute. Sure.
All right, what does the monster do? The
It
government?
eats that person.
And what do you mean by that?
I mean, it eats them.
So the guy you elect doesn't like cut them up, throw them in the oven, and eat them up. I mean,
Oh, well,
can
no,
you
no,
explain?
sure.
Like, tell me, what does that look like?
They go to prison if that's what you want. Sure. We can use the prison system as an example. The current justice system is fine for the purposes of argument, right? Nothing about that changes.
Okay, who decides what constitutes theft?
Law. So
And
who, where,
determines the
when,
law?
why the monster eats is a thing defined in law. And those are things that we decide. Those are the contracts that we enforce on the monster.
Okay, now, all right, now you were talking about these rights,
Sure.
and you said the monster can do everything but violate people's rights.
The monster can do nothing. It must do what we tell it to do.
Okay, so all right, so if people have to decide what a theft is,
Sure.
okay, and if you commit a theft, then the monster gets to eat me. What
Yeah,
if people
sure.
disagree on what a theft is?
That's a problem of policy. Define it better within law. Figure out what you want your definition to be and then implement it. That's a policy issue. That's not an ethics issue.
It's not it is an ethical issue because there are people can disagree on what a right is. Like, do you believe in intellectual property?
Probably not. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
All right, so okay, how about can you own music?
Probably not. You might retain the right to sell things under your name
Mm-hmm.
but you don't own like the notes and the particular
Well,
organization.
okay,
you know?
okay, what if I want to sell something under your name? Can I do that?
I would say no. I would say that that's business being done in bad faith. You're lying to somebody. You're misrepresenting the
Okay, but
nature of the product.
but right, but I have a right to lie. Is my mouth. Is my mind. I
Yeah,
can
well, I
lie,
mean,
right?
it's your hand. You can stab somebody. It's
Well,
moral.
okay,
We define it as immoral, right?
well, sure. I
Yeah.
mean, but
In,
okay,
in,
but the
in that
monster.
same way,
Okay,
if
but
you
the
sell
monster,
something
but the
undermine.
monster, but the monster isn't enforcing reality; it's enforcing rights, isn't it?
No.
But the
We
monster isn't going
use
to.
the monster to enforce our rights. The monster doesn't
Okay,
enforce things without
but right, but what I'm
us
saying is, so but
directing it to.
it's enforcing morality, not it's not enforcing
Sure.
morality, it's enforcing rights. So
Well,
when I was talking about,
sure.
so if I sell something under your name,
Yeah.
I would say that it's immoral because it's a lie, but I'm not necessarily violating your rights. But somebody else might disagree.
Mm,
That's what I was saying. So like, if people don't agree on what constitutes a theft, that's gonna be problematic.
okay, well then
Because
just
the
agree on
reason
what
why people
constitutes a
disagree on
theft.
what. Say it again.
Just agree on what constitutes a theft.
What? What we? That's like, I mean, that's like saying we'll just agree on what the border is. Just agree on what to do with abortion.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
seems.
it's,
Yeah, again,
that's not. You
but
have
that's what it is,
society.
right?
No, but you have society. I mean, you could solve any sort of policy issue with that question. Hey guys, you don't know what to do with ICE?
Yeah,
Just
and you
agree.
can destroy any policy prescription with your criticism. Well, what if we disagree? What do you mean? You're asking
No,
me a question that can't be answered by its own nature. What if people disagree? Yeah, what if the moon is made of cheese, dude? What do you mean? What is
and
the
my
point of having a law if we disagree on what the law is for and what the law does and what the law means?
well, no. So you're saying that the law can. You saying that the monster can only do ethical things. What I'm
No,
saying,
can only
if
do
there,
what the law demands that it does.
okay, but is the monster enforcing rights or is it enforcing morality?
It's not enforcing anything. We enforce rights. We enforce morality. We use the monster as a tool to do
We
that.
can use the monster to enforce morality.
Yes.
Okay, so I can use so if you're not a good person, I can use the monster to make you a good person.
Sure.
Okay,
Within the scope of the
and
ethical
we
system.
okay, and let's say there's a bunch of people and they all have different ideas on what a good person is.
I don't care about any of that. I care about what
Well,
the ethical system says.
well, that's what I'm saying. I just don't see how it could work because like there are a lot of people who would say that a good person is going to be one who goes to church every Sunday and gets baptized and all that type of stuff.
Right.
So what would be the ethical thing to do? Like
The ethical thing to do would be to define your ethics properly, agree to it, form a constituency, and then enforce the rules of that ethics.
So whatever that ethics is.
Yeah, man. The ethics are constructed.
So in your position, it would be ethical for the monster to force everybody to go to church on Sunday.
No.
But you just said it's whatever. It just
yes, your ethics are whatever you want them to be. The subjugationist position is a particular ethical construction.
But I'm asking you.
Yes.
I'm asking you, what would be the ethical thing to do?
Not that. What do you mean? The government
So,
has no
the-
has
okay,
the state,
so
the monster cannot. You cannot make laws that force people to associate. That violates the associative right. So the ethical thing to do would be not that. The law is challenged on its face. Which is different from what we currently do, Hizzle, because we currently challenge laws on incidental application. We wait until the law causes harm, and then we see about whether or not we want to keep it.
Man, I think you have. It sounds like you constructed this model
Yes.
that as soon as we apply it, you're saying that you're using it like outside of its scope.
You were attacking this from an ends testing position, which is the
Hmm.
problem, right? Because I don't care about ends testing because NSL doesn't contemplate anything that would require ends testing. This is an
Well,
ethical construction.
I'm not talking about ends. I'm talking about means, because now because we're talking. I
No,
You
you are
agree?
talking about ends. When
No,
you
no,
when
this
you
is
say how
means.
do we apply this, that's ends.
No, no, well, no, no means because we're talking about the monster has to be subjugate to the people, to the
Yes.
people's whims and wills,
Yes.
right? And what I'm saying is the people have a bunch of different wills.
Yeah, and that's ends testing.
So
I don't care
what
about any of that.
that seems
That's
like a
ends
means
testing.
testing.
No, it's not means testing. Means testing
But
is what are we doing? Ends testing is how do you do it and what happens after
no,
you do it.
I'm saying so the monster, how does it know what to do?
Sorry, I think I have those backwards, but it doesn't matter.
So but that's the means, because the monster is it can't even get to the end because it can't agree. People can't agree on what the end ought to be.
Well, yeah, but that's a criticism of democracy. That's not a criticism of the subjugationist program.
No, but you're saying that it has to obey the society. It has to obey
Yes.
the constituents.
Yes.
So that's not an issue with democracy.
I think it is
What?
an issue with democracy. I think you're criticizing something different here. It's like saying, if we have the communist utopia, how do we figure out how to do things? And what if some of the proletariat don't want to do that? That's an ends testing question. You could demolish any system by saying, what if people disagree?
No, you couldn't.
Sure, you could.
You couldn't demolish my system, not that way. Especially not morality. My system has nothing to do with agreement.
Okay,
That
any system that involves a state, you could demolish any government system
Mhm.
by saying, what if people disagree? Especially anything built on democracy, right? You could demolish any argument for the current system in the United States. Well, what if people disagree? Sorry, dude. At some point, democracy has to
But
happen,
okay,
right?
so but you're saying it. So most
All
people,
Hizzle, all laws
no,
are
no, no, no,
damaging.
no, but well, most people like so when it comes to democracy in general, they're not necessarily saying that it's ethical. Like what if everybody doesn't agree? They're not saying that that it would be ethical that the government or the monster is doing something that
I think that
disregards other
somebody
people's
who is
rights.
pro
They're just
democracy in the
saying,
Athenian sense would say, yeah. What do you mean?
well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's ethical. They're
I
just
think I
saying, hey,
think that the
that's
pro
how the
democracy
government should be
position would say,
functioning.
yeah, that is ethical. Democracy
No,
is the ethical
no, I
application
mean,
of that sentiment.
no, I mean, because people, I've seen government, even democratic governments, described as necessary evils all the time. They're just saying they're inherently like unethical. You're saying it is ethical, or
I'm
you
giving
saying
you a
yours is
construction under
ethical.
which it could be ethical. Yes.
I don't
But
see
if
how.
your complaint is that people can disagree, that's something you have to take up with Athens, dude, not with me,
Okay.
because that's a criticism of democracy. That's a criticism of consensus, right? That's a criticism of society, of like, it seems like you're saying we shouldn't have society because if people disagree, we can't figure out how to fix that. So we should just fuck off and not have a government. Which, I mean, you're allowed to say if you're an anarchist, like, you can just get rid of the
Hmm.
state. I just don't think it solves any problems for you.
Well, it would solve the problem like of involuntary association. It would solve one problem,
So
but
being an anarchist prevents people from attacking you in the street?
no, 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 no.
So then the problem hasn't actually been solved, right?
It is so because the difference is that government's involuntary association is seen as legitimate. No, if the mafia came to my house and took all of my stuff, the people nobody would look at that as legitimate. People might even rally to my cause and try to help protect me. If the police did it, they just assume that I did something wrong. They would what ideas of government does. It gives legitimacy to immoral activity, to immoral actions. The I don't get to take your car. I don't have authority over your car or your house because I don't own it. And if I tried to exercise authority over it, hardly anybody would see that as legitimate. If I was the government, they would. That is the huge difference.
I feel like this is a distinction without a difference. Like I don't understand what the critique is here.
Because well,
If you're just going to say that everything the government does is illegitimate, then
no,
like,
not necessarily everything that the government does is legitimate. Like if it's non-consensual. And so I wasn't critiquing your position. You were saying that my position doesn't solve anything, and I was saying it would.
No, I mean
it
it's
doesn't
just,
need to solve everything. And I'm not saying like bad things. All bad things just go away.
at the end of the day, I just think that a lot of the critiques that you've raised are just critiques of democracy and not critiques of anything that I've presented.
So I was critiquing the means because you were talking about how the monster is supposed to submit to the people's will.
Yeah, and then you ask about, well, what if people disagree about, what if the constituency disagrees about what the monster should be doing, and that's a critique of democracy.
And that's about the means.
No, that's a critique of democracy. That's a critique of consensus, of society, of social organization, and I can't do anything about that.
Well, no, what that would mean is that it would be impossible for the monster to submit to the will.
Yeah, if you assume that people are going to disagree, which the position does not do.
Okay, no, and since the monster cannot be subjugated to the people's will, because
only if you posit that people will disagree, which NSL does not do. NSL does not contemplate civic disagreement.
Okay, but in a world where everybody agrees, it would work. But like on Earth,
that's every political system that has ever been presented. What are you talking about?
No, it doesn't. In the United States functions very well by doing things that a lot of people disagree with.
I don't know that I would characterize the American system currently as being well functioning.
What I'm saying, it's pretty damn functional in my opinion. Like whether I agree with the everything that does is irrelevant. But what I'm saying is your position,
not by your lights. Your whole complaint is that the system is doing things that you may not want it to do.
Yes, but it's still functional. And
if it's doing things that you don't want it to do, it can't by any means be functional.
Right. Yeah, it's stealing, is doing some other things, is waging war, and it's good at those things. But nobody's making an argument that those things are ethical. You're saying your monster would be ethical if it's subjugated to the whims of the people, and it can't do that because the people aren't going to agree. There's no place.
Yeah, but there it is. You're presupposing that civic disagreement would exist, which NSL does not contemplate. You are importing things from the outside.
Okay. Would you concede that your system cannot work in the human society?
No. It would not work in any constituency that has fundamental disagreements about how to apply the monster. I will concede that. But if you're presupposing that disagreements will happen, they're inevitable. What if gravity stops working tomorrow?
It's not the same. That's not the same thing.
It is the same thing. You're importing stuff from the outside.
It isn't. Like the government doesn't have to stop functioning if the gravity stops working. What I'm saying, if your system is built on the idea of unanimous consensus, unless
all democratic systems presuppose unanimous consensus.
They do not. Democracy is the exact opposite of unanimous consensus. It's the majority.
I mean, not if you want it to be ethical.
That's 51%.
But you admitted earlier that
the claim isn't that. But few people would argue that it's ethical. That's why it's called.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why build a system if you don't intend it to function ethically? Why would you build a system that is intended to do things immorally and unethically? That doesn't make any sense.
It does make sense. So
it absolutely doesn't.
And so arguing from a status, it is good to have an organization with a monopoly of force that is able to do things immoral to have a functional society, because there's going to be bad people in it. right? You want it
Okay,
for
so
protection.
there are going to be bad people
So-
in the system, so we should allow the state to do bad things. That doesn't follow.
Yes, that is the argument.
That
That's
well,
why
that
it's
doesn't
called
follow.
necessarily evil.
Well, then I disagree. That doesn't follow. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to me that you should want to build an ethical system that permits unethical things. That's
what a state. That's what a statist would argue. Like for instance,
Well, then I'm not a statist.
a
Clearly,
law enforcement system. If you're not a statist, then you're an anarchist.
no. If you're not a statist, you're some
Okay.
kind of libertarian. I think anarchism is something else.
No,
Anarchism
so-
is a rejection of the conversation. We shouldn't have a
rejection?
state at all.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it yes.
Yeah, but that's not a conversation about how much should the state be doing and how should it be doing it, because you would reject the concept of the state on its face. So you're something else. You're neither statist nor libertarian.
I would, as long as that is involuntary. But what I'm saying is, statists often do not make the argument that their government is ethical or that is behaving ethically. Like I had a statist up here about a month ago. This episode with this guy from Alabama West. He's a statist, and he's just straight up said that the government is unethical. But he thinks we're better off with it. Do you see that? That's his
That doesn't
argument.
make it. That
He
doesn't
is
make
not
any
make.
sense.
He would not.
We need
It
to
makes
have
perfect
less ethical
sense.
behavior in order to be more ethical. That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, the argument is that you want an organization with a monopoly of force to establish order.
Yeah, but the monopoly of force always lies within the people who are being governed. It doesn't lie anywhere else. It can't lie anywhere else by definition.
So but that's not the case. It
is the case.
And no. The monopoly of force relies on the ruling class, whoever that is. In a
No,
democratic
it lies in the
society,
consent of the government.
that is not the way it works. It depends. So in a democratic society, it's in the majority, whether they consent or not. Perhaps you have a monarchy, then it's the king who decides. Perhaps you have some
All
other
of these
type
systems are unethical.
Yeah, right. But statists aren't making the arguments that it's ethical.
You can't. That doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
This is the difference. They're saying the ends results in the aggregate a more ethical society.
Yeah, the statist
means
says
is
the
not
ends
ethical.
justify the means.
Right.
I am
Now,
telling
you're-
you, the means
we-
justify the ends.
But you're arguing that your means is ethical.
Yes, and therefore your ends are ethical.
Okay, and the means doesn't even seem to be possible.
Because you presuppose that civic disagreement would exist as a necessity, which I do not presuppose.
Okay. But you presuppose that there is consensus.
I have to, otherwise it would be unethical.
Then if you're presupposing consensus, then the whole thing comes falling apart.
No.
Because in that case, you don't even need the monster at all.
No, you do.
People know if there's consensus, everybody's just gonna voluntarily just go with it.
No.
You
You
don't
still need organization. You still need strata. You still need to manage things. The government does more than just enforce laws. The government spends our money. The government manages things in foreign affairs. The government does more than just enforce laws, dude.
Okay. Do you not? It's your system seems like it would work in a utopian society.
Well, that's all systems.
No,
You could say that about any
Democracy is-
political system.
no, you can't say that
Democracy
about
can only work in a utopia, because in a
No.
utopia nobody disagrees.
No, the democracy is built on majority.
Which you admit is unethical.
Yes, but
So then
the
what's
status-
the point? Like,
the status isn't saying that the means is ethical. They're saying that the
And
end
I'm not saying
is
that the-
more
that the-
ethical.
I disagree. The means justify the ends.
Well,
If you have bad means, you have bad ends.
Take it up with a status. But what I'm saying, there's not a contradiction in their position.
There is a contradiction in their position.
How
You
is
can't
the
say we must do unethical things in order to be ethical. That makes no sense. That's not how language works. That's not how words work.
No. Then they're not saying They're not saying do unethical things so you can be ethical. They're saying, all right. So there's two states. One is more ethical than the other. And it's saying if you use this unethical means, you get into one that is more ethical. It doesn't have to be completely ethical.
No, that's the contradiction.
That's
you
not
cannot get more ethical by doing unethical things. You get less ethical by doing unethical things. The amount of ethics decreases. That's how the words work.
That is not a contradiction.
It is a contradiction.
The contradiction would be saying that something unethical is ethical. And that is not what they're saying. They're saying through this unethical means, you can get to a more ethical state. They're not saying that is the
contradiction.
That's not a contradiction.
I would say that it is a contradiction. You cannot increase the amount of ethicalness by introducing unethicalness.
It'd be like saying by working harder, by the means of working harder, I can get to a point where I get to be lazy.
By removing water from this cup, I can put more water in this cup.
That's a fact.
Or sorry, by removing water from the cup, I have more water in the cup. That makes no sense.
That's not how that works. But that's not a.
That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
No,
the
that's
status
not what
does.
I'm saying. They're saying
by removing water, I gain water. That doesn't make sense.
They're saying through a means, through one means, you can get to a state. A contradiction would be if you were to say that the government means is unethical, and is also ethical. That's not what they're saying.
Maybe contradiction is the wrong word, but it just doesn't seem to follow to me that by removing water from a vessel, I gain water in the vessel. That doesn't make sense. Ethics is a zero-sum game, right?
That's not what they're saying, though.
Well, then I don't know what the fuck the status is saying. Statists are crazy. This doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree, statists are crazy, but that position isn't incoherent. But
I would say it is definitely incoherent. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. You know what? Next time, I gotta get ready in because my daughter.
No, you're fine. You're
come
fine.
In. But like next time, let's bring you on. I'm gonna argue for statism.
Were you not just doing that now? I'm already tired of doing this now.
Yeah. I'm gonna get my stuff together. I'm gonna argue for a limited government. He said ethics is not a zero-sum game. I agree. Robin Webster just commented. I don't know if you can see that.
No, I just saw it. I mean, no, I think it is. I think that if we want to maximize ethicalness and maximize the amount of ethical behaviors, we cannot do things that are unethical. That doesn't maximize ethics. That's not how that works. Stadiums? No, not stadiums. Stadiumism. There you go. That's a new one.
Well,
the ethical state is one that builds more stadiums.
All right. well, bro, I appreciate you coming back on.
I appreciate you inviting me. It's been great.
Yeah. Yep. Don't get in the camera. Stop. I'm getting it. All right, but yeah, she came in. She's letting me know that it's time for me to get off the show.
It's okay. I'll let you go. Take care of yourself, man. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Appreciate it, bro. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you all next week. We'll have a guy on where we could be arguing about the Trinity. So it'll turn back into another one of those Christian debates that we have majority of the time. But I love digging into different topics like this as well.
Hell yeah. I appreciate it. Take it easy.
Yeah, man. I will see you guys later.